Right here we have the conventional back wheel drive gearbox. This is a cutaway view of the back wheel drive gearbox, which we call it conventional type. Alright, let us look at the components. Alright, so starting at the front here we have the flywheel. This is the flywheel, and in between the flywheel, beside the flywheel we have the clutch disc, which is this part here, and then we have your pressure plate. Right? So you have the pressure plate, the clutch disc, and the flywheel as one assembly. And here we have the throwout bearings or the release bearings. Right? This is the clutch fork. This mechanism is connected to your clutch pedal, which is this here, right? Or inside the vehicle where you use your foot to operate it. Alright, so when you press on the clutch pedal, when you press on the clutch pedal, this is what takes place. You realize that the throwout bearing actually moves in. Alright, so that's the purpose of the throwout bearing pressure plate assembly. So the pressure plate is actually what gives the clamping force to the clutch, so the engine can drive the gearbox. Right? The throwout bearing actually releases that pressure that is on the clutch, so you can change your gear smoothly. Alright, so moving on. Right here we have our seal, which is the input shaft seal. Right? And behind that we have our bearings, input shaft bearings. And this is the snap ring that actually locks the bearing onto the shaft inside the gearbox. Right? This is your input shaft gear. It stops right here. Right? This from here to the end of this shaft would have been from here to the end of the shaft right here would have been your output shaft, right? And underneath we have a counter shaft that goes right across, stop right here, right here. All right, and this would be a reverse idler gear and shaft. This now is your shift rail. You have 1, 2, 3 shift rails, right? To control reverse plus 5 gears. All right. Now these are your forward gears. You have this gear is a forward gear. This is another forward gear. They work as two gears work together, basically. Right? The smallest gears on the counter shaft would represent the first gear in your gearbox. So this gear that we're looking at right here, compared to the rest, is smallest gear. Therefore, this is your first gear. And then this one right here would be your second gear because it is second in size. Right? Then this becomes your third. And this is your fourth, and this is your fifth gear. Behind here we have the reverse gears, which is the spur gear right here. 1, 2, 3. The reverse gear actually is a sliding mesh gear, while the forward gears are a constant mesh or synchro mesh gear. Constant mesh meaning that they are always meshing together. So the counter shaft and the output shaft gears are always meshing together. They also use a synchronizer assembly to synchronize the meshing of the gears on the shaft. Alright? This assembly right here would have been your synchronizer assembly, which consists of your synchronizer sleeve, your synchronizer hub, synchronizer ring, our blocking ring, some people might refer to it as the blocking ring, the hub, the sleeve, and you have the key or the dog. Right, this is a clearer view of the hub. This is the hub, and this is the sleeve. The dog dog would be this mechanism right here. The dog is otherwise known as an insert or a key, right? And this would be your synchronizer ring. That's your synchronizer ring, right? And behind the synchronizer ring, gear have a cone that is used to mesh with the synchronizer ring to cause it to actually slow down the gear or actually bring the gears up to speed, depending on whether you're shifting up or you're shifting down for the synchronizer sleeve to actually move across and select the gear without grinding off the teeth. These are the parts of the teeth that normally grind, right? This part does not move. This part is the part that grinds. Alright, so we have a shift rail, as I said before, shift rail, and this part of the shift rail, which has the notch, is known as a detent mechanism. So they have a spring ball. You realize there's a spring inside here, and there's a ball inside here. That ball actually holds the gear in place when you select a gear. If that ball was to go bad, then the gear would jump, then it will jump out of gear, basically. Alright. Behind here now we have what is known as our interlocking mechanism. Right? So you have the interlocking mechanism that actually prevents you from selecting more than one gears at a time. Right? Between the shift lever, that space that is right here would be called your shift gate. So that's your shift gate right here. Use some more light. Shift gate, yeah, right. So you can see it a little clearer now. Shift gate. And that's your shift lever moving inside the shift gate. That's part of your interlocking mechanism that prevents you from selecting more than one gears at a time. And this part of the shaft, this gear, is known as your speedometer drive gear. It drives the speedometer sensor, which is the driven gear that is connected to the gearbox outside, externally, right? Now let's look at this is your gear stick or your selector lever, right? Let's look at the components of the outside of the gearbox now. Components are three separate components. You have the bell housing, which is this part, right here to here is bell housing. And then from here to here would have been your gearbox or your case. And from here to here would have been your extension housing. So from here to here is the extension housing. This that you're looking at right here would have been a seal, the output shaft seal, right, or rear seal of the gearbox. This would have been your output shaft bearing. Output shaft bearing, and this is your snap ring that actually locks the bearing in the housing. This would have been your breather. This is a breather that actually releases the pressure from the gearbox when the gearbox is too full with oil. And underneath here you see a bung. Right, that's where you drain the oil from. That's how you drain the oil. Alright, and if you want to add oil to this gearbox, there's normally a bung at the side of the gearbox about this level, somewhere off here. Right? And that's basically all the components of the conventional rear wheel drive gearbox.